Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. It's been a minute and a half since I've gone live on Facebook in this way. But I felt compelled to, especially given kind of the events of the last week. And when I say the events of the last week, y'all already know what I'm talking about. So if you pop in, please let me know where you're coming in from and your name and say hey or something. Let me know I'm not here by myself, because I assume I will likely be here by myself because it's been a while and I don't know how the Facebook algorithm even works anymore as it relates to that. But anyway, I wanted to speak on something real quick. In regards to this election, right? The election that we all just went through. And it's evident and obvious that the election impacted people in different ways, right? And there is a particular group of people who have been impacted, or particular groups of people that have been impacted more than other people, excuse me, who are in this moment reckoning with not only the consequences of what's happened, but also what that means for the people who are in their circle. So, as some of you know, maybe all of you know, I am all about love and light and healing and growth, and I'm a God girl. I'm full of faith. But at the same time, I'm also a feeling person. And so I've been seeing a lot of memes and things that have said things such as, why would you let how somebody votes make you hate them? And I'll tell you this from, just from a clarification's sake. I don't hate anybody. But what this particular election season means to me, and for a lot of people who have been marginalized, is that there's a threat, that we will have to live in existence of for not just the next 4 years, but potentially for a long time, a long time as a result of decisions that were made by people. And some of those people have been people who purported to love us. And so with that said, it can very much feel like a betrayal when there are people who have smiled in your face, who have talked kindly with you, you've supported, they've supported you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then choose to vote against not just your interests, because this is not about interests. This is not about ideology on a base level. This is about rights. This is about safety. I don't know if you guys have seen, but there have been kids going around at schools handing out or telling people that, now they own, little boys telling little girls that now they own their bodies. Where do you think they get that from, right? And so the rhetoric and the amount of hate and hate speech and all of that, and just reckoning with what the next 4 or 5 years will look like. So I'll tell you some of my personal experiences as it relates to clearing a bit of my Facebook feed or friends list. I have been a friend of many on Facebook. I've had people that I don't even know where I met them at, and we've been Facebook friends, and there's been no indication of getting rid of them or keeping them. And, it just is what it is. I have pretty much an open page so people can follow me. They can see what's going on with me. But it's a matter of, if we're friends, now I can see your page. And as I am seeing things on people's pages, or people are responding to my page, and I'm making decisions accordingly as it relates to what I need to do in this season to, quote unquote, protect my peace. Now, in 2016, we were at the same place. We had less information. I remember the day after the 2016 election being in a really bad place. It was a really bad place. And it was in the midst of me finding myself in a really dark spot. And so I've just been really intentional about protecting my space since then. And part of that has looked like, if there's anything that looks like foolishness to me, somebody posted yesterday, it's a boy. You know how everybody's talking about this election is a gender reveal? She posted, it's a boy, and it looked a little too happy, and I unfriended her. I don't even want to think about what it is. Now, do I hate that lady? No, I don't even know that lady. And I don't know her well enough to know if that was or was not an issue, but I wasn't going to stick around to find out. And so for the people who are posting those memes of don't let politics divide you, don't let politics, this is not politics as usual. This is an existential, oh Lord, I can't talk, existential crisis. I still don't think I said it right. But y'all know what I mean. Y'all know what I mean. This is a crisis point, and this is a point where we have to be really intentional about keeping our friends close and our non-friends, our frenemies farther. Because if you are in a circle of me as a friend of mine and you vote against my interests, if you vote against someone who is racist, who is sexist, who is a sex offender, who is misogynistic, who is all of those things, and you look at me as your friend, I regard your lack of regard and consideration as a problem. And it's not something that I choose to opt into as it relates to my friendship. So with that being said, I will very much do that in the name of Jesus. I can still do that and love you from afar. I can love you from afar. And so these memes and things of people trying to guilt people into, being kumbaya with folks who have voted against their best interests, who have a blatant disregard for the lives of them and their children, but then will go off talking about how they're a mama bear. No, miss me with that. So I would say that give yourself permission to not get caught up in this. I keep seeing a lot of spiritual toxicity. Toxic spirituality. Do you know what I mean when I say that? I mean the dismissal. I was gonna say the dismissiveness. Y'all, I can't talk. The being dismissive of people's feelings, being dismissive of people's pain, in order to oversimplify it with, these platitudes that are coming off as empty from people who've not heard you or who are not sitting in that pain with you. And so as a coach, as a therapist, what I do know is that far too many of us don't lean into our pain. So I posted a video yesterday, and literally I was planning on recording the video. And in that moment, I could not stop my eyes from watering. I was on the verge of tears the majority of yesterday, and I just allowed it. And when I allowed it, I also posted it because I want, I'm just keeping it real with y'all. Like yesterday was a really difficult day. We're going to go into some really difficult times, and that's not hyperbole. That's the way that it is. Particularly a lot of people who look like me, Black women, a lot of brown women, a lot of women in general, a lot of people who lack resources, a lot of people who depend upon the government for a lot of things are going to go through hard times. And so it's going to be a dark time in our country. It's going to be a dark time in our country. And as a Black woman, where, you've all seen the, you've seen not only the memes, but you've seen the work of Black women really doing a lot of the heavy lifting as it relates to voting and organizing around what's in the best interest of everybody. And so for us to have a moment yesterday is allowed, for us to still have moments, for us to have feelings and faith at the same time. Yes, I know that God is still on the throne. Yes, I know that Jesus is the light. Yes, I know. But what I will not allow people to do is dismiss the very valid feelings and emotions of people who are going through this process, because a lot of folks are dealing with unresolved traumas. They're dealing with pain. They're dealing with a lot of things that they never allowed themselves to emote because somebody came around and told them Jesus is all you need. You know what? You know what Jesus had? Jesus had a lot of faith. Jesus knew exactly what his mission was. He knew what his purpose was, but he also had some feelings. He also had feelings. So allow yourself to feel the feelings. Allow yourself to also have the faith to know that God is in this. Do I believe that God has me? Absolutely. Did yesterday feel like an effing nightmare? Absolutely. Do I know that sometimes, even in the midst of God having us, that it still gonna feel kind of crummy? Yep. I had a Facebook friend, and I say had because I unfriended her. There were some indications early on in our friendship that we did not align politically, which, is fine. Like that's not my beef. That's not my beef. But when I posted something yesterday that basically said, if I get any indication that you are on the side of celebrating the darkness that we are going to go through, I'm unfriending you. And she came in and tried to spiritualize and godify me and say, but we are supposed to be not in the world or of the world. We're supposed to be, in the world. What's the example you're giving people? And God chose this. And my response to her was, God gave us free will, right? God gave us free will. And sometimes we as raggedy mere mortals exert that free will like big dummies. And I believe that we exerted that free will like big dummies. Now, here's the thing. You ask God for a thing, he'll give it to you. You want it? And he will cover you in it. So I pray for covering in this thing that a majority of people asked for, right? But I can weep and feel for the people who are going to struggle throughout this. And the darkness that we've just invited amongst ourselves, the darkness that we have to carry as a culture, what that looks like, what that feels like, how that's going to permeate our children. But I can feel that, and I can also faith it. And so stop telling people God is in this. We know. Stop saying, I don't know what y'all all upset about. There is a reason we've been equipped with feelings, right? We've been endured for the night and joy comes in the morning, but you still have the weeping. You have permission to have the weeping. You have permission to feel however you feel about whatever that thing that it is that's going on with you. Now, what we don't have permission to do is hate people and do all of those things. But just because I unfriend you on an app does not mean I hate you. Just because I limit your access to me does not mean that I hate you. Just because I say, oh, if that's the way that your values align and they don't align with mine, so we could part ways, does not mean that I hate you. So let's stop making these things, these false equivalencies about what it means to say to people, you know what? This is where in my journey you depart, and that's fine. We can do that without yelling at each other. We can do that without cursing at each other. We can do that without fighting with each other. And I've not seen a lot of fighting. I don't know why people are trying to make this into a bigger thing than it is. I've not seen a lot of fighting. What I've seen people say is, I didn't realize that you didn't see me like that. Because here's the thing that I understand. That if I have a good friend, if I have a really good friend, and we're friends enough that I know their plight, right? I want to learn about them. If they're if they're trans, for example, I'm interested in, okay, so tell me about your experiences and how can I lighten your load? How can I lighten your load? And if I do anything unintentionally to make their load heavier, then I want to know that I've done that unintentionally. But if I have a trans friend and I say that they are my friend and I say that I love and care about them, because a lot of people are loving people that they don't care nothing about, right? And I do something intentionally to make my friend's life harder, how audacious of me to believe that they should still expect that I will be their friend. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening. You're having, you look at the exit polls. There are a lot of white women who said, I'm with you. And the majority weren't with us. And so there's some y'all I've been giving a heavy side eye to. And so this same person who said this other thing, she said, so are you only doing business with Democrats? No. But do I get the opportunity to do business with people who value I align with? As a corporate trainer, absolutely. I would never go into, let's say, a Donald Trump type of establishment and do a corporate. You couldn't pay me. You could not pay me enough money to do that, because what I recognize is that all money ain't good money. And I recognize that there are some things I'm not willing to give up in order to have peace, or to lose my peace, or to take away from my integrity, or that's out of alignment with my values. I've said no thank you to corporations that wanted to do work with me, because I didn't like the way they showed up. I didn't like the way they talked to their people. I didn't like the way they talked to me about their people. And so, absolutely. So for someone, I find it incredibly disingenuous and somewhat manipulative for someone to say things like that. And so for those reasons, she had to go. She had to go. Another person who had to go yesterday, who I've been friends with for a very long time, and somebody I used to hold in really high regard. He was actually a former pastor. Well, I mean, he's still a pastor, but yesterday he made this big long post thanking Kamala Harris for her service, and then chiding her at the bottom and saying, you know, you really did your people a disservice, and that's not good leadership for you to leave them basically without, you know, giving them a speech. They were all heartbroken. Well, if you look at, first of all, there are a couple issues here. And one of the issues that I have with that is how much higher the bar is, or how much higher the expectation is for Black women. And I think that's one of the things we've been contending with. But when I simply asked him, you know, I'm curious to what, you know, your opinion is on Donald Trump's leadership style. I didn't go into any politics or any of that. And then the place that he lost me was when his response, which was, you know, I've made plenty of comments about and to Donald Trump and Rhonda as a thought leader and a corporate trainer and the type of woman that you are. I know that you're not saying, no. I know that you can't help but to agree that what I'm saying is right, basically. And that was poor leadership. So my spidey senses go off, right? And my spidey senses then go off, and we're having a difference of opinion, unless, you know, because I'm really genuinely curious about what he thinks. If he's assessing leadership ability, my spidey senses went off because he was attempting to gaslight and manipulate me. He wanted to tell me how great. Hey, Charles, how's it going? He wanted to tell me how great I would. Oh, and by the way, I recently saw an article that you were featured in. Nice to see you doing blah, 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 right? So it was like, it was really, he was, you know, the sandwich method. It was a good thing. It was a not so manipulative thing. And it was a good thing. He was feeding me, or attempting to feed me, a bullshit sandwich. You're a pastor, sir. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. So he had to go. Unapologetically, he has to go. It's not because, and I don't know who he voted for. I don't care to know who he voted for. I know how he treated me in the course of this conversation. And then in his comment thread, right? In his thread, you saw vitriol from people, his friends, right? His fellow church members and all of that. One guy came at me, and I'm like, why are you coming at me, sir? And so when you're talking about leadership, I want you to look at the leadership of the people who follow you on Facebook. And so for that, we departed. Because when I further asked for, just show me. Because why is it that She has run a flawless race, but because she didn't speak to the people in the time that you wanted her to speak to, now you're attacking her leadership capabilities and saying that she was only in it for herself. I found that incredibly disingenuous. I also found it incredibly sexist. I also found it because the bar is not equal. And so I cannot trust you if that's how you show up. He's also the same man that told me he didn't like Michelle Obama because she was too, as good as her life was, she had the nerve to talk about how difficult things were for her. So you got to go unapologetically. Like, I'm not even doing this with you. And I could do it in love. If I see him in the street, now, we might not sit and have coffee or anything because I don't really want to have a conversation with him because I'm not in the season of educating people as to why what they did was effed up, because you have the information. People get the opportunity to make choices. And so when we allow ourselves to distance ourselves from people, that does not mean that we are abandoning our Christian values. It doesn't. I can still love you like a brother and not want to subject myself to you. What about being a Christian say we have to be a doormat to other people's destructive behavior or their destructive intent? And so for the people who are putting up those, I understand on a basic level what it is you are attempting to convey. But I also understand how this is why a lot of people don't take Christianity seriously, because it's like, it looks hypocritical. It looks hypocritical. And so I would say, for anyone who is reeling with the very real possibility of what will exist in this country as a result of yesterday's election, or the election on Tuesday night, feel your feelings. Don't let anybody bully you with a Bible. Don't let anybody bully you with some Bible verses about why you can't have feelings. Jesus had feelings. And Jesus also had faith. So it's okay to do that. And it's okay to create healthy boundaries for yourself. It's okay to stick up for yourself and say, you know what? You can't be in my circle like that anymore. So, when I see the memes that say, a difference of opinion is about, kind of some surfacey level things. Difference of opinions is not on the types of things that difference of opinion. We can't have a difference of opinion if your choices align you with a racist, if your choices align you with a sexist, if your choices align you with a career criminal, if your choices align you with someone who said they wanted to be a dictator and make other people's lives more difficult for the sake of easing the burden of the wealthy, then that's a difference that we're not going to sit and chop it up about. What do we have to talk about? What do we have to talk about? And here's the thing. We're not meant to be everybody's friend. We're not meant to be everybody's friend. And so when you allow yourself to purge or disconnect from people or do whatever, don't let nobody bully you into God said accept everything. Healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries. There's a lot of you who are in horrible emotional states because you have not allowed yourself to distance yourself from abusive people and abusive relationships. And being in a relationship with someone who is who does not have your best interest at heart, you got to have one eye on that relationship at all times. So have your feelings. Have your faith. Create healthy boundaries. Protect your peace. And part of protecting your peace means don't be around people who set your nervous system on fire. And if you're smiling in my face and you want to have brunch, but you just voted against my daughters. I have 4 daughters. None of them have children. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm about to do that thing, right? So if I tear up and cry, don't come for me, because I had somebody after I teared up and cried like 5 years ago came up to me and it was a whole situation. Some of y'all remember that. But I have 4 daughters who don't have, and I don't have any grandchildren. And there's a part of me that was always like, oh, I can't wait till, my kids start having kids. And now the thought of it terrifies me. The thought of it terrifies me, because one of the consequences of this last election is that more women and babies are dying in birth or as a result of pregnancy. It terrifies me to think that one of my daughters could have a complicated pregnancy and I would have to sit and wait until she's almost close enough to death so that somebody will do something about it. That's a constitutional, that's a basic human right. A basic human right. And we're saying, you know what? Not my problem. Because see, it's not my problem personally. I no longer have a uterus. It's not my problem, but it's the problem of a lot of people that I love. It's a potential problem of a lot of people that I love. And if you voted for that under the guise of this pro-life, the math ain't mathin'. And either you are too hateful or you don't have the comprehension skills that I desire or require in relationships. Because the comprehension skills that I require in relationships allow me to have intellectual conversations where we can exchange thought. Absolutely, Dusty, you can share. Where we can exchange intelligent thought. There's nothing more difficult than having a conversation with someone who just don't get it and is not willing to put forth the effort of getting it. Don't get it is not putting forth the effort to get it. And because of that, you don't get to be in my close circle of friends. I'm not going back and forth with you. I'm not going back and forth with you. I'm going to protect my peace in that way. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you. I will absolutely pray for you. But I'm not going to feel bad about cutting you out of my life. I'm not going to feel bad about saying you don't get to have access to me. Because what you have to recognize is that there are a lot of people who are pretending, they are weaponizing their implicit bias. They're weaponizing their prejudice. They're saying, I didn't know the world was so difficult for people who aren't like me. When all you had to do was listen to people who aren't like you. And if you don't have the capacity to take other people's pain at their word, you're not the type of person I want to chop it up with. Now, will I come and train you? Yes, but that involves an invoice. That's different. A personal relationship is different than a business relationship. And I'm not going to let some meme that somebody posted up and talked about, don't allow your differences to ruin your friendships. They're not ruining my friendships. They're exposing relationships. They're exposing. There are a lot of us who have given a lot of people the benefit of the doubt. And I'll say this, and this is going to sound like a really harsh criticism or a really harsh comparison, but back in the days of slavery, right? There were enslaved people, and there were little the slave owners' children, and they would sometimes play together. And at the end of the day, even if the little slave girl thought, well, she's my friend and she likes me as much as I like her, that same little girl felt a different way about her little enslaved friend. There are a lot of relationships like that. So I remember back in 2016, and I may be taking a little bit of a tangent, but 2016 was a year that was really difficult for me. For those of you who've been following me, and I talk about my divorce quite a bit. I talk about being depressed. I talk about being anxious during that time. 2016 is when all types of shit started coming to the head for me. It was around my birthday, so 2016, around the time I turned 46. I'm now 54, so it's been 8 years ago. That's when Donald Trump was running. That's when a lot of my friends were being exposed. That's when I was seeing a lot of vitriol on the internet. That's when it seemed like people were really feeling sure about themselves. They were really feeling like, okay, we could take the hoods off. Now we can come out full barrel and tell you how we feel, and you can't do nothing about it. I don't know why I just did that accent, but whatever. And I remember being in that space and being like, it was so revealing. It was painfully revealing, right? It was painfully revealing, to have always known, but then to know that there's a sector of people who will still smile in your face, be the best of friends and whatever, but then to have it verified. And then to start looking at people and then being like, oh my gosh, can I even trust you? Like, and then having a conversation and being like, oh, right? Because there are some conversations we just never had. We never had to have until that moment. And then we start having those conversations. Things start being revealed. We start to see that, oh, this is the little slave master's girl. And I'm her little enslaved friend. I'm her enslaved friend. And things changed. And I remember that year, like that was July, when Alton Sterling and Philando Castile were killed. And basically part of this next administration is that we will see a lot more police killings. And here's the thing I'll say about that. Not all cops are bad. I don't believe that. And if you look at anything that I've said throughout the course of the time that I've been on social media, particularly when I was more social justice-y. Hold on a minute. I got a text. When I was social media-ish and coming on and having these type of conversations, I would never say that all police officers were bad. I don't believe that all of anything or all of anything. But what I will say is that if you have a desire to injure or kill people with impunity, the police department is the place to go, right? The police department, there is a system that is designed to allow you to do that. The police department is the place to go. And so you're probably going to find more people who come under the umbrella of the protection of the position, who are flocking to that position so that they can abuse, take advantage of, and all these things to other people, marginalized people who don't get the benefit of the doubt when these incidents happen. And so you will probably see a larger number of them in positions like that, right? Well, now part of this next administration, he basically said, you know what, we're going to give them impunity. We're going to allow them to, they can do what it is they please to do. As they're doing their job, they can do that. You know what that's going to do? That's going to unleash a lot of beasts. That's going to make it harder for the good police officers. That's going to make a lot harder for those of us who may be targeted because of whatever it is that's the ick for that officer. It may be that they believe all their lives that black women just think they're all of that. There's research that speaks about black girls in school and how they're disciplined more harshly because, people think that black girls are just a little too sassy. So maybe there's a police officer who thinks that, if you challenge him in the same way that a white woman challenges him, that or if you happen to rebuke him in the name of Jesus, that is an indication that you are a threat and you deserve to die. And if he knows that, if he pulls a trigger and ends your life, that he gets to go, oopsie. I don't know. She scared me with that thing that she said. I know that, I had a gun, but she was acting a little too, or he was acting a little too. And now they remove protections. The plan is to remove protections. And there are people who voted for that. No, you don't get the honor and the privilege of being my friend. You don't. You don't. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm going to pray that God touches your heart. I'm going to pray that God allows you to have a revelation. But you know what? I wouldn't have hung out with Saul, but me and Paul would have been like this. So until you have your road to Damascus moment, I'm not messing with you, because you are a threat. You are a threat. You are a threat. So don't allow anybody to bully you into having a relationship or maintaining relationships with people who have literally voted in the interest of things that may jeopardize your life. And I mean all kinds of things. I mean, they're talking about FAFSA. They're talking about dismantling the Department of Education. So here's what I do know. This particular brand of Republicans, because when this friend of mine, right, we weren't really all that cool. We were both speakers at an event. Once upon a time, we had some mutual friends. But when this speaker, when she said, you don't have any Republican clients, don't get it twisted. I have nothing against Republicans. Regular, normal Republicans. Them MAGA Republicans, them Donald Trump Republicans, they different. They're different. Get this, I have voted across the aisle. I've been a person who's I'm looking at this person, and then I'm like, oh, I think this person may actually be better for the job. And I voted across the aisle. So don't come to me and then make it seem like I'm that all or nothing. It's that binary. It is not. There's a lot of middle ground. And when people attempt to do that to you, that to me is an attempt at manipulation. And what you're not going to do is manipulate me into one thing or another. The life that we're living is complex. Each of us are our own. We are complex beings. And as complex beings, that means that we can have two competing emotions at the same time. I can have dismay. I can have sadness. And I can still have faith and joy that on the other side we'll get there. But I can still have that moment. Allow me my moment. Don't let anybody push you out of how you're feeling. The thing I will say is, if you find yourself super overwhelmed with this season, with what this is going to look like for you, with how it's showing up in your relationships and how it's impacting you, and your self-concept, any of that, I implore you, please get a therapist. Get a therapist. Let a trained professional help walk you through this process. So I will say that I've had therapists, I've had spiritual coaches, I've had other coaches, business coaches. And what I will say is, if your spiritual coach is spiritual positivity, toxicity, you might need something different. Allow that for yourself. And don't let anybody make you feel like you're less of a Christian or you're less of a believer because you do. Get the help that you need. Establish good, healthy boundaries for yourself. And remind people of who you are. And if they ask, let them know why they lost access to you. Because there are consequences to enabling dictators. There are consequences to enabling racists, misogynists, sex offenders, people who engage in felonious behavior, and they are complicit. They are complicit. And it's okay to feel some type of way about that and still love them as Jesus will have you. Okay. That was all. I won't plan on being here this long, but yeah, feel your feelings, have your faith, but don't let anybody punk you into denying your feelings. Okay. And if you need a safe space to talk about any of that, find it. If you can't find it, let me know. I may look at creating something. You know, back in the pandemic, I did what's that thing called? I called them coffee hours, where I just set up a time and send out my Zoom link and allow people to pop in. So I might do something like that if people need a space to just kind of come and say the thing. Because for me, right, for me, having friends who checked in on me yesterday, and I don't mean like, I mean people who actually saw me, right? People who said, hey, and I'm not saying saw me on the internet, because, you know, I had the moment where I had to get ready for my session. But I mean people who know that I'm passionate about this type of thing. I had white friends reach out to me and say, hey, you know what? I just want to hold space for you. I want to hold space. I'm sorry that this is how this is. I love you. That was a simple thing. The one thing I didn't have, which is really interesting, is I had not one black man reach out to me. Not one black man. And instead, and this is part of the reason that black pastor had to go. And he's a black pastor of a multicultural church. And I think there's some dynamics that go along with that. And it's not the person that you guys are thinking, if that's what you're thinking. But as a pastor of a multicultural church who has black women as part of his church, his first inclination was not to come out and say, hey, I know this is probably a really heavy day for a lot of you. Be blessed in the Lord, or, you know, I want to acknowledge for all of our congregants. And maybe he did it in his little whatever, but he came on the World Wide Web and instead of saying that, chastised a black woman, did not offer support. And so also in this juncture of my life, I refuse to be around black men who do not center black women in that way, that don't even have the first thought of, wow, this has to be difficult for them. Let me not make that burden heavier by making a statement that didn't need to be made. And to that point, I do want to give a shout out to Pastor Theo Williams, South Bend, Indiana. He's the pastor of a multi-racial church, multicultural church. And he came on, I was only able to see about 10 or 15 minutes of his live, but he came and spoke to some of the heaviness of the day and allowed words of comfort for the people who he's leading, which to me was amazing. That was good leadership, right? That was good leadership. But one thing that I know I won't do as I'm on this journey of, you know, being 54 and divorced and very happily single. I'm so happily single, y'all. Happily single. I love it here. And I don't have any goals of getting married again. That's not on my bingo card for the rest of my life. I can very well stay happily single and date and companionship and do all of that. But the one thing that I will not ever again allow in my life is a black man who does not center black women in that way. So the mayor of Baltimore, oh my gosh, his name is escaping me right now. I think it's Baltimore. Young black guy with an afro. And in his acceptance speech, because he was reelected, he spoke so beautifully and wonderfully about black women, about how we are shown up in this way. And obviously, black women aren't the only people who are going to suffer under this administration, but black women carried a lot of the load of doing the work. And it's not just because Kamala Harris was black. If people say that one more again, just because she's a black woman, for people to do that is such a cop-out to me, for people to assume that the only reason someone will vote for probably the most qualified candidate for president is because she's a black woman, says to me that you don't believe that black women could ascend to that space in any other way. And so the only reason that I have to pick from all the other qualifications that she has is that she's a black woman. The black woman was a cherry on top. It was a very big cherry on top. But I'm here to tell you, if Donald Trump was running against Mickey and Minnie Mouse, I would have pulled the lever for Mickey and Minnie Mouse on Tuesday. Did it help that she was black? Oh, I love that part, because representation matters. Representation matters. And because representation matters, there's so many people who are beholden to white supremacy. Come on now. I didn't know I was going here. They're so beholden to white supremacy that they are afraid of what happens when representation matters. There's a clip that's going around of this guy. It's a young Asian guy. He's interviewing this older white guy. And he's talking to him and he said, I'm just really surprised. You're a man of facts. Like, you really like facts. I've noticed, like, you fact check, you all of that. And he goes, I'm just really surprised that you're voting for Donald Trump, because he basically doesn't have facts to back up what it is that he says. He lies a lot. And the guy basically said that what he was protecting was white majority, because representation is a threat to people who are insecure, who believe that the only reason that they have gotten their position is because they are white males. Because if it's about merit, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And to believe that the only reason that a black person will be in a position is because of their race is so insulting. But again, these are the same people that want to get rid of equity. And what equity says is that we're going to even the playing field. Equity isn't equality. It isn't fairness. It doesn't look like fairness. And because of white fragility, and see, these are the conversations that I start to have, where I start to lose white friends who get into their fields, right? Again, white fragility is a hell of a drug. Because we've been in a country where white supremacy has been allowed to be the rule of law. And so that's how you end up with a Donald Trump. That's how you end up with black people who support a Donald Trump, because there are a lot of black people who are very comfortable with white supremacy, who want to align themselves with the patriarchy, with white supremacy, who want to glean some of the benefits of that, even if it means not standing up for everybody else. You know what I mean? Anyhow, I didn't plan on being here this long. I missed y'all. I probably won't pop in anytime too soon, but I did just want to share with that. Your feelings are valid. If you want to be angry, be angry. Jesus was angry. If you want to be sad, be sad. Jesus was sad. If you want to have fear, be afraid. Jesus had fear. And in the midst of that, lean on your faith. Stay prayed up. Pray over your people. Pray over your people. And prayerfully, we all come through this. But the threat is very real. So you get to feel how you feel. All right? So that is all. I'll talk to y'all later, okay? Bye.